Do you want to align with God's vibes, adapt to a spirit-led lifestyle, and live out of the fullness of God's plans and purposes for your life? This podcast is for you. The good news I have for you is that your time is now. It's time to transform self-sabotage into self-mastery and revolutionize your world. If you're ready to go beyond the ordinary and break out into the extraordinary life God designed for you, you're in the right place. In the God's Vibes podcast, you will find the freedom and permission to stop chasing success the world's way and simply be who God formed, shaped, and anointed you to be. My name is Juliana Page, and my mission is to lead you on the ultimate adventure, aligning and tracking with God so you can radically transform your life from the inside out and build spirit-driven success. Using life coaching and biblical and prophetic teaching, I'll show you what it means to dwell in the good land God ordained for your life and train you to be a powerful person who is a walking testimony of what's possible with God. Subscribe to God's Vibes for spirit-filled real talk, hard-hitting truth with a humorous touch that will help you discover who you are in God, dare to press through your seeming limitations, and chart a divine path that will renew your dreams and transform your future. It's time to experience true freedom through courage, faith, and self-mastery. I dare you to step out in faith and courageously dive into the purposeful life of trusting God for the impossible. Let's go. Welcome back to the God's Vibes podcast. I am super excited that you are here. If you are new, welcome, welcome. You're going to want to go ahead right now, take this moment to subscribe to the podcast. Once you listen to this episode, if you rate it and review it, after you subscribed, I also give you a free gift that you can claim over at julianapage.com. So that includes anybody that is currently done that as well. It is so important and it means so much to me when you do that. It's how I actually know that you are being inspired and uplifted, hopefully transformed by the information that you are receiving every week. We meet every week for Tune In Tuesday, but that does not mean that you cannot binge listen to all the episodes. So I like carrying all of my mentors with me when I'm going for walks or when I'm driving in my car. So I hope that this podcast does that for you. Go ahead, subscribe, and share. Sharing is caring. Now, the other thing that you're going to want to know, you're going to be an insider, a God's Vibes insider. You can visit julianapage.com to actually become one and get all of the email updates. However, we meet over in a community offline called Courage Co., and it's totally free to join us and register. You can join us for prayer calls. You can join us for weekly motivation, of course, the podcast and other things. You can also join us for monthly interviews and master classes and the God's Vibes Mastermind. So when you're over there and plugged in, that's where you hear all of the updates and all of the good news. So check out Courage Co. It's courageco.org, or you can also find it on julianapage.com under the Work With Me tab. Okay, so today we're going to talk about increasing your capacity. We live in a world, frankly, where it's normal to be depleted, where it's normal to be burnt out, where it's celebrated to be busy and overwhelmed, and it's just normal, right? Like when you ask somebody, hey, what up, girl? How's it going? You hear, oh my gosh, I'm just super busy, working. You just hear those kind of answers, but it's like, what really though is going on? You good? Like, how full is your cup? Like, what's happening with you, right? But we've trained ourselves to operate outside of our capacity and in our own strength and understanding, and we've greatly limited ourselves in that way, and we've limited also the joy, the freedom, the peace, the victory that we can walk in. So we're going to do something about this today. We need some enlightenment because that ain't going to work, okay? It's definitely not sustainable. Although you may have learned that, you might have been patterned that way. Even as a young person, you might have taught that it's important that you suppress your own needs and that you just care for everybody else, like you don't matter, your needs don't matter. So you might have learned that pattern, but just because you learned a pattern doesn't mean you have to keep it up. And especially if you have the wisdom and understanding now that it's not a healthy pattern to maintain, you can actually operate by a new one. Thank God, right? Like what I love about being a woman of faith is that you can pattern yourself after God, right? And his image and his likeness. And you can reveal or receive from God more and more awareness and wisdom and understanding of that glory, more knowledge of what that means to not only experience it and receive it, but to reflect it, to embody it and to reflect it in the world, which is really, really powerful. So let's break it down. Capacity is actually the maximum amount that something or someone, in this case, can contain. So when you think about yourself, I like to ask myself, what are you full of? Girl, what you full of? You full of yourself? Are you full of the world? Are you full of the flesh? You know what I mean? That's another way to say self. Pride, what are you full of? Fear, doubt, insecurity. What are you full of? Okay? That's something interesting. I like to think of a hollow bamboo, right? Like, what do I need to get out of the way so that I can be soft and pliable in God's hands, so that I can receive from him? So if you think about your heart like fertile ground, there's a certain consistency to that ground. It's got to be soft. It's got to be pliable. It can't be too hard or rocky. It's got to be able to receive the seed of the Lord, the word of the Lord, in order to be able to believe it and speak it and declare it out of your life and live it, right? So I think about that. What am I full of? Like, is there even any room for God in my life? That's really interesting when I think about what I am inputting into my being and actually comparing that to the outputs that I'm getting. Low quality input means low quality output. Okay. So I want to put personally high quality input, spiritual input into my being so that I can have supernatural output. All right. Now, when you picture cups or glasses, many of us are walking around with like drips in the bottom of the glass. Like they ain't nothing in there. Okay. And the quality of that might not be good either. All right. But we're actually designed to be a cup running over. So picture just putting a cup under a faucet and it's just running over. Okay? That's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be hooked up to the faucet, in this case, God, and running over with spiritual gifting, with the fruits of the Holy Spirit, with the gifts of the Spirit. We're supposed to be running over with every good and perfect gift that comes from above, overflowing with it. Okay? But a lot of us aren't even getting the water pouring down and overflowing like that from the faucet. We're not even connected to the faucet. Okay? So our capacity is nothing. And we're just trying to operate again in our own strength and understanding. That patterning might have worked for a minute, but it might not work anymore. Okay? But I want to remind you today that powerful people have capacity. Okay? They're able to live their lives independently and don't give other people the responsibility to meet their needs. What? Yeah. Okay. Powerful people have capacity, meaning they're able to live independently and they're not requiring other people or giving their power to other people or giving the responsibility to other people to meet their needs. They get their needs met. Okay. So I like to say when we have the hookup, when we connect to that faucet, God meets all of our needs. He meets our need for certainty, right? When the world is so uncertain, God meets our need for certainty. God meets our need for uncertainty and variety because the mysteries of God are so great and fast. Who can know them all, right? And when we start hungering for God and putting our hunger there and pursuing godly things, it just increases our hunger, which is a really beautiful thing because it provides so much context to our life and color to our life, if you will, right? Our need for significance is met in God. Our need for approval is met in God, right? Our need for connection and love is met in God. We can meet with God every day and experience that. Our need for growth is met in God because we're constantly supposed to be growing and maturing in God, right? And our need for contribution is fueled by God, right? The more we are full of God, the more value we actually have to contribute to the world. And we're not doing it from an angsty, selfish, needy place. We're doing it from overflow. That's very, very different. So it actually says in 2 Corinthians 3:18, and we all with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. How cool is this? So all with unveiled face. This means when we come before God, right? We're awakened now. We woke. We woke up. We're just not walking in darkness anymore. We don't have this veil that's separating us between God, right? We just come boldly to the throne. And the more we behold God, it's like we're looking in a mirror. The more we behold God, the more we look at God, the more we see ourselves. The more we're actually transformed into his image and likeness. That's amazing, right? The more we look at God, the more we see who we truly are. We're actually transformed from one degree of glory to another. What? So cool, right? And that comes from the Spirit. That's not from self-helping our way. That's not from doing. We're literally transformed by the renewing of our mind. So the more we look at God, the more we look like God. Okay? So sometimes when we have like limited capacity, the world is like a mirror too. So it's reflecting back to us how we're treating ourselves, right? So if we feel unsupported, neglected, overlooked, denied in some way, we're actually doing that to ourselves. And it's just being reflected back to us. Really, really interesting. Okay. This is also why coaching is so powerful. When you get these powerful, miraculous shifts, right? Miracles are shifts in perception. When you start to experience these and compound these on a daily or weekly basis, working with a coach, you are literally integrating all of these shifts into your life and walking out your new creation self. You have a whole new way of being in the world. Super powerful. I like to say that through coaching, when I'm working with clients, I'm literally fast tracking them into their limitless living. Come on, right? There's another scripture that says this: enlarge the place of your tent and let the curtains of your habitations be stretched out. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes. That's actually Isaiah 54:2. Okay. So enlarge the place of your tent. This is all about making space for God in your life, making space to receive more so that your capacity increases. Okay. It says, do not hold back. How many of us do that though? We just hold back. We don't make space for God at all. But make more space. Keep making space for God in your life and to receive from God, and watch what happens to your capacity. Okay, so I write about this in the book Stepping into Royalty, but I remember asking God, reveal your glory in and through me. That was my prayer, right? Reveal your glory. What I didn't know was the cost of that prayer. It's kind of like praying for patience, you know? You think it's like a really great, wonderful thing, and then you're like, oh, like I just have more opportunities to be patient. That's fun, right? When you pray for God to reveal his glory, that also opens up a lot of pressure, because now you can no longer be less than that, right? Any area that you're not reflecting God gets now put under a microscope almost, and you have to start looking at it and facing it and be with God on the journey of transformation and growth. And you might face resistance, because ultimately what this means is that you can't keep being your old, quote unquote, dead self. Is dead. And if it's dead, it's going to get dead works. It ain't going to work, right? So if you're going to be a new creation, you have to be willing to part with that old version of you, your old patterning, your old way of being, to fully embrace the wonderful new. Behold, I am doing a new thing, right? Will you not perceive it? You've got to pattern yourself after. You have to keep beholding God and pattern your life, your mind, right? Your actions, your faith after the example that you have in Christ, right? You keep patterning yourself after the example. But that means that you can't be your old way of being anymore. So there's going to be some resistance. It's going to require growth and change, getting uncomfortable, facing some things that don't always feel good, right? And showing up differently in the world. But the good news I have for you, this is totally possible, right? And to answer the question that's probably spinning in your head, got you. How do you change your life and how do you increase your capacity? Like, give me one word. Got you again. The word is decide. Decide. You change your life with a decision. You don't change it by overthinking about it, by trying to figure out all the hows. You change your life by making a decision and being about that. And you keep stacking these decisions. And that starts to increase your capacity because you're starting to pattern your life differently. Where you used to shrink and play small and get in your own way, you make new decisions where you show up for yourself. You make bold faith moves. You take inspired actions. You keep doing that over and over. You not only have a new way of being, you have a whole new life. And new relationships. And new ways of being in the world, right? And contributing in the world. So some of the things that I know God asked me to do when I was very much like, we're always increasing our capacity, right? And going from glory to glory and strength to strength. But I remember in one particular season, I was wrestling with God on this because I had come out of a bad relationship and, took a lot of time to heal and recover. I'm talking like 2.5 years time, right? Just tracking with God, just doing the things, And then I was in another relationship and it was going well until it wasn't. But I wasn't getting the grace to leave the relationship. I was getting that something was happening here and that it was working for me. And God told me to write over my trauma with truth. What I didn't know was that I was still bringing some of my hurt, some of my trauma into a new thing. And the new relationship triggered the old trauma. Now, when I thought that was healed and I was over and done with it, it was still coming up. And God said, you weren't ready to fully do that before. To fully rewrite this trauma with truth. You weren't ready to do that before. You just need to get out before. But now you've got the right conditions, the right pressure to produce some diamonds, to produce some gold, okay? And I was like, oh. Here I am thinking I'm done growing, right? Joke's on me. And I also made the dangerous prayer, God, help me to love like you. Totally got set up to work on that one too, right? I also was getting, believe for the abundant life that's accessible to you now. I was still living this future tripping life. I was thinking that it should have happened by now. It should have been done right now. I'm behind. I have to catch up. And God's like, hang on, hold up. Sister girl, we're going to change your whole rhythm here. You're going to move by the rhythm of grace and not your own pace. Got it? Cool. Here's what we're going to do. You are going to believe for the abundant life that's accessible to you right now. And pull on that and make demands from that every day. And pattern your life after that. You're not an orphan. You're not in poverty. And you ain't going to act like it. Okay? You are adopted into the kingdom. Again, this is in the Stepping into Royalty book. You're going to step into this royalty and walk like it. Okay? This is all about how you operate and how you pattern yourself. And then I also was getting, we're going to learn together, me and God, how to co-create here, how to carry pain and discomfort differently. Because life is 50-50, meaning there's going to be 50 things that you're 50% of things that you're yay, it's good, it's wonderful, I'm celebrating, woo, right? But then there's going to be that other 50% where you're discouraged and frustrated and challenged. And it's really hard. But if you learn how to carry pain and discomfort differently, you can be fruitful in any season. You can have the kingdom now, righteousness, peace, and joy in any season. And if you let God do the heavy lifting, you for sure can grow through any season and learn to really embrace even the uncomfortable things rather than the way I was patterned was to run from that stuff, or shove that stuff down and repress that stuff or deny that stuff and definitely not face it. Anything but feel it and face it. Nope. Right? So rather than doing that, rather than like having you running your whole life and being patterned like that, straight up in fear and chaos and anxiety and just attracting more of that and having more and more of that mirrored back to you in your life. No. We done with that. We're going to teach you how to carry pain and discomfort differently and help you see your capacity so that you don't have to run from things. For the righteous are as bold as a lion. You can face things, even when they're painful, even when they're uncomfortable, and not shrink. I was like, what? We doing some things. All of that, y'all, in a relationship that I was tempted, and I still definitely did, to be like, God, seriously? This is what we're doing? What happened to that, like, redeeming the time? You know, restoring the years the locusts have eaten? What happened to those verses? Like, where are those at? Where's the whole part where you, like, perfect this love story? Like, what up here, right? And he's like, hang on, check it out. I'm doing something, and I am answering that prayer. I'm just doing it very differently than what you expect or anticipate because I care about your heart. Man is going to look at the outward appearance, but I care about your heart. I say, yo, you good. Come on with it, God. But like, what? So here are some ways that you can increase your capacity. All right. Number one, care about how you feel. Care about how you feel. Feelings aren't facts, but they're data. Okay. And if you can feel anything, you can face everything. A lot of times we shrink, we sabotage ourselves, and we all have our own sabotage cocktail. We get in our own way. We really block our dreams, and destroy destiny. We're usually the facilitators of this because we don't want to feel pain. We don't want to feel discomfort. We don't want to process or have to deal with any kind of emotion. We ain't got time for that, right? But you've got to slow down and care about how you feel. And feelings come like waves, if they come in like a pattern of 3, it's like, oh God, it's coming. Woo, it's getting bigger. Yikes. And then it crashes, right? But you can go with that. Like just even think about your breath. Like you can breathe through that and feel it. So for example, you can also lean into the rhythms of grace here, right? There's rhythms of grace, just like there's rhythms of the other thing. And you can allow grace to be present even in your discomfort. Okay. So for example, you could be feeling fear. Oh my God, like I'm afraid of, people seeing me some kind of way. And you can really play that out and that can get bigger and bigger and bigger the more you entertain just that thought, right? But if you allow yourself to be vulnerable, if you allow yourself to be seen, if you allow yourself to feel that discomfort and still show up, still speak, still be present, still do that thing that you're afraid to do, what happens is you can start dissecting what that fear is. Oh, like I've been afraid whenever this feeling comes up that people are going to judge me. And that felt unsafe before, so I don't want to do it again. But I'm not going to judge me. And I have my own back. And it's safe to be me. Right? So like a younger version of you might have gave that meaning. When I feel this feeling, it means that I'm rejected. And that's the worst thing ever. And I can't be rejected ever again. Right? But it's like, oh, you know what? Like that was an old pattern. That's old programming. And now I actually accept myself. And I honor myself and I have my own back. So even if somebody that doesn't change my position and I'm safe and I'm secure and everything is going well here. There's nothing wrong, right? You just calmed that wave of feeling by being with it, by starting to understand what it's telling you, what it's offering you, the data that it's providing, and deciding what you want to do with that data. Deciding to show up differently with what you do want to carry forward and with what you want to release so that it no longer keeps coming up and tormenting you, but you can release the part that doesn't serve you. And you might have to do this for a minute, but as you get better at it and release these parts that don't serve you, all that you have left is the parts that do. Okay, so you can completely rewire yourself and retrain yourself here to be a person that has your own back versus the person that's constantly playing small and beating yourself up. Same fear, but you still feel it and you do something different because you are willing to care about how you feel and actually process and sit with and be with whatever information it was providing with for you or to you, right? So you can start being curious about yourself versus judgmental about yourself. What is this revealing to me? What is this holding up for me? What is this giving me an opportunity to see? Is it true? Right? Like, how horrible would that be to completely live a lie when you could just sit and feel it and change it because you're that powerful? Okay, so care about how you feel. Number 2, quiet your mind. A lot of times we have this monkey mind that's like thinking all of the things and going everywhere. And that's just autopilot. That's just an automatic mind, right? A mind unsupervised is like a little kid running around getting into all the things, right? It needs supervision. The word tells us to take every thought captive that's exalting itself above the truth and to constantly be renewing our mind. We've got to be diligent about this. We have to stand guard at the gate of our mind, right? And just not let every thought flow freely. We're not going to give airtime to every single thought. We're actually going to decide what we're going to think and think on purpose. And that does take some work, but when you see how much pain and suffering you're causing, when you don't have to, I have found that stirs up a willingness to do the work. I'm also lazy in the sense that I no longer want to overwork in the physical. I would rather do the work to manage my mind so that it's less hard on me and how I show up. I don't have to hustle. I don't have to push. I don't have to force. I can renew my mind. I can practice and exercise my faith. I can use my declarations, right? And build myself up spiritually. So I have to do less effort in the world, less forcing. I can allow things to work for me. Yes, I'm going to do the work, but the work is different. I'm going to work to renew my mind, right? And create from inspired action versus pushing and forcing and all this extra exerted, wasted energy that's very unproductive. Like, I'm over that, right? And then number 3, deliberately tune into who you are. Okay? And who you are, just in case you need the reminder, is the beautiful creation made in God's image and likeness that can activate God's frequency, which I say God's vibes matter as a self-check. Like, yo, like we ain't tracking with God's vibes right now. Not even doing that. And the frequency, right? There's a frequency of faith. There's a frequency of the kingdom, which comes from Romans 1:20, righteousness, peace, and joy. That has their own frequency, right? There's a frequency of just confidence and knowing. There's a frequency of wisdom, right? That's God's frequency. And me connecting to God's frequency and flowing in that 100% matters. Whatever I'm otherwise offering is not good. It's not pure. It's not lovely, noble, praiseworthy, excellent, right? So the 3 things to focus on when you're really thinking and intentionally increasing your capacity: care about how you feel. Your feelings give you very powerful data, and you can't transform what you can't face. You can't fix what you won't face. I'm not using the word fixed here. I think transform is really, really important. So you can't transform any area that you won't give over to God. Okay? So care about how you feel. Quiet your mind. Intentionally decide what you're going to tell your mind and what your mind is going to think, and think it on purpose. I love a lot of I am power statements for this reason. You know, because our mind has a tendency, we've been patterned in such a way that we beat ourselves up. Even in athletics, I found that was a motivator, right? Like, if the coach just yells enough profanities at you and like enough horrible things, it'll motivate you to like show up different. And I'm like, well, that actually does not work for me. By nature, I'm also not a competitive person. And I found that beating myself up just turned up the inner critic. It did not help me create, show up, produce different in the world at all. It actually started defeating me. Okay? So you need to quiet your mind, and you need to purposely train it and tell it what to think so that you can think on purpose. And yes, this is a daily practice. Okay? And then deliberately tune into who you are. This probably is one of the most challenging ones when you're not used to be patterned this way, but it's worth it when you think of increasing your capacity and changing your entire being. When you change your being, you change your programming, and you also change and can access your capacity. Okay, so for example, you have the capacity to access the mind of Christ, which is limitless. You have the capacity to vibrate and live under the influence of God's frequency. And the way that's described in the Word of God is unforced rhythms of grace and divine enablement. You can just totally flow versus force. Okay? And you can know who you are, because when you know who you are, you show up boldly, confidently, courageously, full of faith and conviction. And a person doing that is a stable person, a powerful person. Okay, so some reminders today. Think about this. Are you taking care of your capacity? Because that's nobody else's job. We want to make that a husband or a wife or a partner or a friend or a community or a church or a job. We want to give them our power to take care of our needs. We want to give them the responsibility to take care of our needs. But the interesting thing about that, like when you think about responsibility is your ability to respond, nobody else is in your body, okay? Like nobody else is thinking and processing your thoughts for you or telling you what to think. Nobody else is managing your emotions and processing your emotions with you. Nobody else knows what's in your heart and what you are carrying. That's your work. Like you're in you. It's your job to take care of you and walk with you and care for you and process with you. But I recommend, like we can't always see parts of ourselves, and that's why coaching is so valuable, right? A coach can help you get in there. A coach is trained to help you see who you are and draw out the gold that's in you and connect that to powerful action to get new results in your life. Okay? Again, I like to say a coach helps you fast track your limitless being and living. Okay? So think about your capacity. What are you full of and what do you want to be full of? Take that to a journal and start studying that or reflecting on whatever is revealed to you there. Because that's giving you power. That's giving you awareness. You know where you can start making changes. Then, right, who have you been giving your responsibility to take care of your needs to? And go deeper, how can you start caring for your own needs? So mine, for example, is like plug into that faucet, girl. Like go sit under that faucet. Make sure that you have a practice and make way. Enlarge the place of your tent. Make room for God in your life so that you have different capacity to work with. Right now, you're working in your human capacity, your limited capacity. Why don't you like tap into some unlimited capacity, okay? And start unleashing that in the world, right? We've got dormant potential, if you want to look at it like that, on the inside of you. It is on you to activate it, to learn about it, right? To start utilizing it and contributing from it in the world. Very powerful. Not many choose it, but that ain't why you listen to this podcast. You're one of the few that does, okay? And then lastly, start caring about you, how you feel. Make a way for you to check in with you. Maybe if that's even just having a journaling practice, but have a way that you can care about how you feel, that you can start quieting your mind, and that you can deliberately tune into who you are. Because the more you practice that position in that state, the more you can live from that every single day. Okay? So it is possible to increase your capacity. You don't have to live from nothing. You're actually not required to, and you're not designed to. You're designed to live from overflow and to take responsibility for developing and cultivating not only your potential, but your capacity, right? Which is the maximum that you can receive. How much more can you receive from God? How much more godliness can you offer the world? Who would you be if you had more righteousness, peace, and joy flowing in you and out of you? How might your world change if you expressed more of that? These are all powerful questions, but many of us do not spend time tuning into this and increasing our capacity, right? You increase your capacity by caring how you feel, quieting your mind, and deliberately tuning into who you are so that you can be more of that in the world. So I bless you with this new revelation. I encourage you to get out a journal, start journaling about what came up for you in listening to this episode, and to join us in Courage Co. to be practically walking this out every day. Who said personal spiritual growth and development couldn't be fun? I have no idea, but here it is fun, and it's the most liberating, life-giving work that you could ever do. So join us in Courage Co. All right, everybody, until next time, stay blessed. Listen, if you are not plugged into Courage Co yet, what are you doing? Courage Co is a faith-based community off social media that you can access from your phone or your desktop, literally from anywhere. It is a safe place and a sacred space for you to invest in and live your most courageous and impactful story. You can join us for free for prayer calls and challenges, for a monthly subscription where we have monthly masterclasses, or the God's Vibes Mastermind, where you will get live master life coaching at a price that you won't get anywhere else, 12 weeks of content that we will go through together, or you can navigate at your own pace. You'll have lifetime access to that, a community of women doing this alongside of you, a workbook, and so many other materials to help you on your journey. And I just want you to imagine for a second, having the courage, clarity, and focus to achieve anything you desire. Walking into any situation fully confident, knowing you have everything you need to succeed. Embracing challenges and overcoming obstacles with grace and ease. Feeling only love and compassion for others, no matter how they may have hurt you in the past. Standing up for what you believe in and taking unstoppable action to create the kind of world you want to live in. You're in the right place to take your next step on your journey. When you plug into the God's Vibes Mastermind, I'll teach you how to identify and eliminate the self-limiting beliefs and habits that are stopping you from getting the results you want. I'll teach you how to heal old wounds that have negatively impacted your self-image and self-esteem for far too long. I'll show you how to dismantle the story of who you are and what you can or cannot do in the world. I'll help you expand your consciousness from fear-based limitation to love and compassion and service to the world. I'll help you vanquish the inner enemies that are stopping you from being all that you can be. Release your victimhood and reclaim your power. Develop a aligned mindset and habits to boost your productivity and results. Gain deeper awareness of your own inner light and divinity, and achieve the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self-mastery needed to achieve any goal. You will learn how to think the way God formed, shaped, and anointed you to think, and succeed the way He always intended, and show up in any situation as the most powerful person in the room, no matter what challenges might appear on your path. If this sounds like something that you want to be a part of, I want to invite you to join the God's Vibes Mastermind. You can get plugged into it over at Courage Co. You can access Courage Co at any level at www.courageco.org. Together, we will awaken your inner warrior spirit and unleash your capacity to achieve any goal you can imagine. You will become an example of what's possible with God.